2023 Auburn University Marching Band. For your halftime entertainment, we celebrate the 43-year reign of the Speed Metal Kings, Metallica. With 9 Grammy Awards and 14 nominations, 38 concert tours worldwide, and 11 studio albums that span 4 decades, the Titans of Thrash remain the standard by which all other metal is measured. We begin with a 1984 classic from their second album, For Whom the Bell Tolls, followed by the 1992 tour anthem, Wherever I May Roam. And then, let's turn down the house and light up the stage for the Auburn University Marching Band and their show, Metallica.
Post-game reaction time. Auburn versus Purdue in Indianapolis. The Tigers fall to the Boilermakers. They return the favor after last year's walloping with giving Auburn a walloping of their own. We're going to talk about it, the score, the stats, the storylines, all that's coming up right now. War Eagle, everybody, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together, we sit down, we discuss and share the Auburn experience, all about Auburn sports, culture, and family stuff. An easier way to say it, though, is if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. So thank you so much for joining us and what we're going to be doing this evening for a live reaction show here on YouTube, across the other social media platforms as well. Maybe you caught the replay, too, on the audio or the visual format. However you got here, whenever you got here, we appreciate you joining us and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Reaction show time. Auburn falls by the score of 88-60 to the number 6 at the time AP poll, I believe, 88-60. Boilermakers take down the Auburn Tigers in Indianapolis in this a neutral site, which basically was a home game for each of the two teams, one in Birmingham and the other in Indianapolis. For the perspective, the two schools, the closest major city that they have to all of to their respective schools. Anyway, the Auburn Tigers, as probably expected, the Boilermakers were thought to win this one by, an comfortable margin enough. I still think it's a little bit discouraging for some folks to see this happen for a third time in non-conference play against quality opponents. So certainly we want to talk about as much as this as we can, all the different angles, the reactions, there's emotions with it too, but certainly context is just as important with that, and we'll try to mix in our own perspectives and reactions to things with a little bit of yours throughout the stream, especially for those of you that are watching live tonight. So come on in, let us know that you're here. Say hello, War Eagle, all that stuff. If you have a Auburn player of the game, it's probably the obvious one. I think it's already been brought up in the chat right here. Certainly go ahead and do that this evening. I know it's never fun to give those out in a loss, but certainly there are players that you should give some shout outs to, things like that. But always we can talk about some areas where things could have improved for certain players. We're going to walk through individual stats. We're going to walk through team stats, the storylines amongst all of those, and then obviously try to pinpoint maybe in the team stats where this game was won or lost. We'll definitely look at the big three of those team stats too. So I think if you're going to start off looking at individual stats this evening, you're not going to go any further than looking at Kevin Overton. Once again, this is not a toot my own horn situation. I know what it sounds like, but I'm so pleased that I was able to have a little bit of faith in Kevin Overton. I think when he was picked up in the offseason, a lot of people were, kind of dismissing, his pickup as maybe something like, yeah, it's a great addition, but maybe not as exciting as your Keyshawn Murphy or your Keyshawn Hall, or your Keyshawn. No, so we got two Keyshawns. But I think, once again, I said this several games ago, as Kevin Overton goes, this team might go. Now, the problem is you got to have a little help for Kevin Overton. And tonight there was a little help lacking across the board in terms of scoring outside of really one other player. You certainly have injuries. You have just the fact that the Purdue Boilermakers are an outstanding basketball team. So I was sitting watching the game with my wife this evening, and, obviously she'll ask questions about, what's this team's makeup, because she just is interested in those types of things. And I said, now, if I had to make a educated guess for you, I would say that most people would agree Purdue, this team that they have this year mirrors a lot of what Auburn had last year. Basically almost everybody they had from last year made them such a great basketball team that Auburn walloped with that team, is back this year. So they're kind of having a little bit of a year removed of what happened between Auburn and Purdue last year. So it'll be interesting to see if like they were to play for a third year in a row, how that matches up. Maybe they've lost a bunch and Auburn's maybe had a little bit of continuity there. Anyway, we're talking about the game and the individuals right now. Kevin Overton tonight is probably your most likely player of the game. WT gave him a shout out earlier with 22 points, 8 for 18 from the field, 4 for 11, 2 for 4 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 personal fouls, 1 turnover in 36 minutes of play, and he plays the most out of anybody tonight, and there was a good reason why. I mean, if Kevin Overton doesn't have a great night tonight, this is much worse because Auburn's lost 4 games at this point, and 3 of those have been blowouts. This one is only a 28-point deficit. You have Kevin Overton to thank for essentially making this not as embarrassing as it could have been. So maybe some of the other ones were there. So shout out to Kevin. I'm really happy to see him flourishing, especially while we've had some either injuries affecting the others that typically score more for us, or just this team's trying to figure out who they are and what their skill set is going to be. Certainly there's a big narrative out there about they're too small, things like that. I continue to ask you to look at the 2018-19 basketball team and make that statement again. It's not about your size necessarily, about how you utilize that side. As I say that, we got someone on Facebook making that type of statement. It's just and I don't mean this to be rude to anybody. It's just a very low energy take to say that we don't have enough big guys, or we don't have, that's the thing that's going to fix all of this. It is one thing that could fix it, but you're gonna have to explain 2018-19 to me. And the first response you usually get after that is, well, because they shot the 3 ball well. Well, that's what this team could start doing as well. But anyway, we'll get into that, maybe some more in team stuff tonight. It's just the common reoccurring theme that we hear a lot this season that hasn't been really well thought through. So more on individual stats tonight. Kevin Overton's probably your guy for player of the game. Keyshawn Hall, he's either going to be the leading scorer, he's going to be the second leading scorer. He's up there most nights for Auburn, and probably will be that the entirety of the year. 14 points, 5 for 11 from the field, 2 for 6 from the three-point arc. He makes both of his free throws. He did not get to the free throw line hardly at all in this game, which was interesting to see. Really interesting to see that he wasn't able to get there as much tonight. Now, we'll get to free throws, there weren't a ton of free throw attempts at all in this one. I didn't think I finished his stat line there, and I lost my play. Keyshawn Hall, he had 3 rebounds, 1 assist, maybe 2 assists. There we go. I finally got my place again on the on the stat sheet. So he's your second leading scorer tonight. Those are your only 2 guys in double digits tonight for Auburn. The next highest scorer is at 6 points, and you've got 2 people tied for that. Now, what's lacking here? Certainly Tahad. Now, Tahad got injured in the game. We hope he's okay. He came out in a walking boot, I believe the report was. I saw from one of the beat writers before we went live here. Sometimes that's a little bit scary to see, but also I think, if I'm not mistaken, Keyshawn Hall was in a boot at one point in the season as well. So it just depends on what's going on there. I would imagine that is being addressed, or at least asked about, in the press conference ending this game tonight. And I imagine Coach Pearl is not very happy with a lot of things. Although you could make the case, and I saw some people talking about this on social media tonight, that the energy, the desire seemed to be there a little bit more compared to the other 2 blowouts that we had earlier in this non-conference play this evening. So you're really lacking that. You need that third person in there, at least trying to get into double digits to Tahad. You wonder if he had been on his game and then obviously not lost him, how that might have affected the flow of this game. I'm not saying Auburn would have won, or that this would have even been like a 5-6 point deficit, but I think you would be talking about Auburn trying to make a way to get it down to single digits the rest of the game. So you do wonder how that may have affected. 6 points tonight for Keyshawn Murphy, 4 rebounds for him. You get also at 6 points Elijah Freeman, who I thought played pretty decently at times tonight, not necessarily shooting outside of free throws for him. He gets 3 rebounds too, but he continues to show why he's a very exciting player down there. You also have Tahad, we already talked about, with 5 points, 2 rebounds. So the narrative of Tahad only wants to play well on the road or neutral site ends today. For the longest time, that was the case. And his injury happened, 10 minutes left in the second half. So it wasn't like he got injured in the first half and we didn't get to see the rest of the game. He was not on top of it for the majority, or at least a good portion of the game. So Tahad with 5 points this evening. And then you have Philip Jovic with 3 off of a free throw and interesting. Where did that point come? The math is not mathing there on this stat sheet. I see 1 made free throw and one made basket. There we go. I found it. It's not hard, Kyle, if you just read. And then Sebastian Williams-Adams and Caden Magwood with 2 apiece right there. So that's your scores. Not really a lot of help for Kevin Overton except out of Keyshawn Hall tonight. And that's the individual stats tonight. So certainly there is something that is, that we've missed here that we haven't talked about with the individuals, whether it's something that even in a loss, even where it's a bad loss, that we need to dive into a little bit more. Don't be shy. You can certainly bring that up, and certainly we can talk a little bit more in detail about that throughout the show if we need to. Let's move into some team stats time. This is where we start kind of putting the picture together more fully. We've focused on the individuals. We're going to talk about the big 3 to start off with: free throws, turnovers, and rebounds. And then we'll look for the big stat that tells the story of this game the most. If there's pieces of storylines that we're missing here, we'll dive into those a little bit too. Let's start right at the top. Free throw percentage tonight. Now, once again, this is always why you don't react to things. You go read and do your research. 100% for Purdue, which is outstanding. Only 10 attempted tonight. Now, making 10 out of 10 free throws is still pretty dang good. That means who all shot free throws for them tonight? Let's see. Cox. Where did the rest of them go? Braden Smith, of course. That was it. So 2 guys. And I'm betting, actually not Cox. It was, there you go. Yeah, I found them right there. Anyway, I think both their guards, Lawyer, were the ones that shot all their free throws tonight. So 100% for them. Nobody else shot. Maybe that's what helped. He is a guard, and he was a starting guard. So that kind of explains things away a little bit there for their free throws. Auburn, 69% tonight, 11 of 16. So not great. Certainly they didn't shoot a whole lot tonight, or at least enough tonight, but you've got to make your free throws on the road. That differential there is not going to get it done. It's not great. It's a little bit disappointing. As much as I've talked about Kevin Overton, and I'm very happy with how I've seen him rise to the occasion with his scoring. One of the things that I've noticed, and I think I've got this right, he has struggled a little bit from the free throw line. I feel like oftentimes I'm seeing 2 for 4, 3 for 5 for him. Even as a bigger guard, got to have him making those free throws when he gets up there. We can't have that. Now, Keyshawn Murphy, as a big guy, you expect him to miss a few. But, there's that. Elijah Freeman tonight, 4 for 4 from the free throw line. You got to love that. So free throws continues to be at times a area where Auburn can improve, although this is a little bit of an anomaly, one where you wonder, what was exactly going on there with only 16 attempted tonight. So Auburn loses that category. Auburn definitely wins by 1 the turnover category, 10-11. So what a lot of you were talking about in the break and all that kind of stuff, where can Auburn improve? What do they need to improve? I got to ask that a bunch. Turnovers. That is definitely improvement for where it has been, although I would argue, and I think Coach would agree, that 10 is still too high of a turnover, even on the road. Now, you did win that turnover battle, so that's a mark in your column, but it's still not that great. But that's a win, at least from the way that we measure things here. So 2 out of the different big 3 categories, we are split. And then finally, that brings us to total rebounds. 25 for Auburn, 36 for Purdue. They win that category, and thus they take 2 out of the 3. Even with winning the 2 out of the 3 categories that I focus on the most, I don't see a big enough differential there, even with that free throw percentage, to really tell us that's what happened here. I think we're going to find something a little bit deeper in more of the team stats. That was really the biggest tale of it tonight. And it might just be the injuries, because it wasn't just Tahad Pettiford tonight struggling a little bit, but then injuring for some portion of the game. Keyshawn Murphy also got tweaked a little bit and had to not be in there, and thus some of their bigs definitely took a little bit more advantage of Auburn at times. Yes, I do see you guys there, but we're trying to put a show together over here on this end too. So I always see you guys. Don't worry about it. Sometimes I only add you guys in if it's something that's relevant to what we're talking about, or at least that I can feel I can work with on that. So sorry if you feel like you're being forgotten, Neil, but you're never forgotten in my heart. Never forgotten in my heart. All right, let's keep rolling through here. We're looking for the big stat that tells the tale of the tape. Let's look at field goal percentage here tonight. Pretty big differential. 36 to 56. 20% difference between Auburn and Purdue. You have that big of a difference. If you're shooting 50% anywhere, you're going to do pretty good, or at least have a shot to win. You do that at a neutral site, which is simply a home game. That's difficult to beat. That might be the one that tells you there. You couple that with 3-point percentage, 28% for Auburn, 46% for them. Not good. Not good. That's a pretty big one there too. Almost another 20% difference between the two. Keep moving through here. Points off of turnovers. Auburn loses that 4-14. Second chance points 5-15. Still not like the biggest differences in the world. Certainly Purdue's winning all of these. Bench points tonight, 11 for 31. Your bench tonight for Auburn, Magwood, Freeman, and Jovic. So only 3 people off the bench get minutes tonight. And they only account for, as we said, 11 points. And then 31 of their guys. Where did off to their bench? 12 and 11 points. Just looking for all the different things here. Yeah, pretty good performance by their bench tonight. That could be it. It could be points in the paint, 20-40. Purdue wins that one. Not really as much reflected in the rebounds. There's not that big of a differential there, but there's a couple of candidates here thus far. Fast break points, Purdue wins by a few, blocks by a few. They tie in steals. Assist, I thought assist honestly was going to be a lot different for Auburn tonight. The differential between Auburn and Purdue was going to be a lot different tonight. Braden Smith had 14 assists himself. Everybody else had like 1. So that's shocking that there wasn't a bigger differential than the way that Braden Smith was dishing the ball with a double-double tonight for him. Tonight, you got to give credit, man. Purdue's a really great basketball team. They got a great coach, and certainly having their majority of their roster, a lot of their pieces back. Kaufman, Wren, and obviously Braden Smith are 2 big names that people remember a lot from last year. A lot of big names from last year. Okay, so there you have it. That is the team stats. If we're trying to pick on one stat that tells the tale of the tape, you could pick either of the shooting percentages. You could probably pick the points in the paint or the bench points. I think I'm going to go bench points tonight. Both of those 2 that I just said are 20 point or mark differential there. We got to have more support, whether it's off of the starters who are out there. It seems like lately we've had 1 guy or 2 guys doing all the work, and you got to have a little bit more production. When Auburn's getting 3 guys in the double digits, it seems like that they're at least in the game and having a shot to win this one. It's tough, man. It's really tough. So that's what we're going to go with this evening. All right, we're not done talking about this game tonight. Certainly we want to talk about some of the things that you all have been discussing. So if there's a comment, question, topic, individual, otherwise that we need to discuss in this one, please don't be shy. Drop it in here. I've been keeping tabs on some of the things that you guys have been saying in the chat. Seemed like y'all were having side conversations more than anything, but let's get into it. Before we do, I want to remind you of what's coming up next here at E2C Network. Tomorrow night, the Auburn Experience live podcast recording, episode 155. We still have a lot to do from last week that we did not have time to cover, schedule updates and things like that. Probably do a basketball week update with women and being back in action too, or a mixture of other things as we start to round out the new year. The last one before Christmas 2025, folks. Can't believe it's Christmas already, but episode 155 tomorrow night, 9 Eastern time. Join us for that and catch the replay, catch the audio format of that. That's your next scheduled event. Right now, there will be no Auburn Family Night this week. It's Christmas Eve. And then our next post-game show will be for the Queens, which will be Queens game, which will be a late one, very late one, next Saturday, I believe. Now, that one obviously will play a little bit by ear because I'll be traveling and I'll be on the road, but we should be able to accomplish that somewhat. We'll see how that goes. There'll be a little bit more schedule dynamics that we have to sift through these last couple of weeks here, but I think we'll be ready to roll for the majority of conference play going forward. All right. Let's see what we got going on here. Neil says AU's played nothing but really good teams this year. So a couple ways that you can look at this non-conference, and I get that the Queens game is still there, and I don't think you dismiss anybody, but you have it at home. It is, even as the broadcasters called it tonight, a game where you just kind of get right game, get back in order, whatever's going on with Tahad. Hopefully it's only something that will be temporary. He can heal up, get everybody just righted after what's been a very challenging non-conference game. It's been a non-conference season. It's been fun knowing the type of talent that Auburn was going to have to play, but it's not been fun in the results because of the 4 losses. 3 of them have been blowouts to Purdue, to Arizona, and Michigan. Now that Houston game, Houston looks a little bit less than they were at the beginning of the season, but they're still in the top 10 as far as I know right now. But yeah, I mean, listen, the talent speaks for itself. Auburn has not had any embarrassing losses. There are a ton of teams that can't say that. And you just got to, I know people hate moral victories or things like that, but you've got to factor those things into our discussions about this tonight. WT says, shout out to the radio crew. I couldn't watch the game. They really called a good game tonight. I guess you're talking about Andy and Coach, not Coach Stunny, but I forget, Randall Dickey, who is joining him. I guess that they both were up there this evening. Looking at through our chat here to see what else we got in there. Unbeaten Lake says, I didn't really have any high expectations for us in the game. I had the extremely sad goal for us to just not lose by more than 25. And unfortunately, I'm disappointed. Yeah, look, if you compare the 3 blowouts, this one is the least embarrassing, and that's saying something out of them. Certainly, it got a little bit more out of hand at the end there. So this is not one that got into the 30s and it stayed there. One point that I didn't make earlier that I think is fair to say about this team, I think they struggle when they see that team, or when this team sees themselves get into a double-digit deficit. It's almost like that sets in a little bit of panic, it seems like, during non-conference play, especially against this upper-tier talent. It's like, oh, we're not going to be able to overcome this, and they overdo a few things. It seems like, just looking at it from afar, outside looking in, only working with what information we have, that might be a little bit at play there. But I did say, I looked at the TV, said to my wife when we were watching, I said, if this gets beyond 10 points, they won't get back to a 10-point deficit again. Now, they did hit a 3 right after that to get it back within a 10-point. It went to from 13 to 10. And then quickly after that, it just got worse and worse. So I think against the upper-tier talent, Auburn has got to find a way to stay within a single-digit striking distance. If they don't do that, they panic a little bit as well. And that tends to have shown itself a little bit. WT, I've seen that as well. They do panic and rush things when they get down double digits. It feels a little bit like some of the early Bruce teams where we're trying to shoot our way out of some of those deficits. There was one time they were rushing down the field. I'm like, just run it in there and draw a foul. Get some of their bigs into foul trouble. I think that's what Auburn really needs to do if it's, it's going to be able to succeed against some of these bigger size teams this year. Certainly losing Emeka Oporum is affecting the team. What's going on with Tahad, all of that kind of stuff is tough. Not done with non-conference play, but certainly just kind of putting a bow on things with this one. We talked a lot about this would be a good assessment point. Was the Houston game a fluke? Or are the three teams that Auburn now has faced that are the upper echelon just that good? I still put Arizona and Michigan way up there. I think Purdue's right there too, but I would put Houston a little bit below that. I don't know where they're sitting exactly in the rankings. At the time, Houston was 1. They nearly beat them, had a last-second shot. Michigan was 7, got up to number 2 or 1 at some point here. Arizona was 2 at the time, became number 1, and Purdue is sitting here at 6. I think it's fair to say that Auburn's going to struggle with anybody that's not just at the moment, but a top 10 caliber team this year based off what we've currently seen. But they do have the opportunity to be able to knock someone off in the top 10. So you can't write them off wholesale. But just trying to finally, now that we have a full body of work, one more game, body of work in non-conference, try to make some assumptions that I think are safe and fair at this point in the game. Let's see here. AU has faced the upper insert word you use that I can't spell. Upper echelon. Echelon of basketball. WT says they want to keep the ball outside. They need any more drives to the basket. And, that's a little bit reflected in Keyshawn Murphy tonight. Maybe he tried, but he wasn't getting the calls. It doesn't seem like there were a lot of calls going most ways tonight. How many fouls? Let's see. Personal fouls, 14 for Purdue tonight and 14 for Auburn. So fairly called game. I mean, it really comes down to this. Purdue played really well. Purdue's an outstanding basketball team. Definitely a top 10 level team. Auburn is currently not that. Doesn't mean they can't get there. Doesn't mean they don't have the talent to be that, but they certainly are struggling to deal with those upper echelon. It's our word of the day. College basketball teams. There you have it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show and being here, part of our little family within the Auburn family. We appreciate you doing that and spending some time with us. We always want to encourage you to connect with us. Email e2cnetwork@gmail.com, direct messages, all that stuff. And appreciate you watching live. Appreciate those of you that watch and replay. I hope you guys have an outstanding Christmas. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Hope you know the reason for the season, the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. And I hope you enjoy this special time with family and friends and whatever else you're going to be getting into, and hope you get plenty of good Auburn gear. Till we have the opportunity to talk to you guys again, either on a post-game show, somewhere else, I want to remind you that the Auburn Creed asks you to do these things: do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. We ask you to do the same. War Eagle.